And then there's one that I want to linger on a little bit here because they made the playoffs last year with the comeback player of the year, Geno Smith. And I think the Seahawks got even better. Not just Bobby Wagner, but two young kids in the draft, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zach Charbonnet. You also have that kid Witherspoon on the back end, Jamal Adams getting healthy, the two tackles last year in their second year. How good do you think the Seahawks can be, Greg?
Yeah, I give them a lot of credit. That roster, their last couple drafts, you just named a bunch of them. Obviously everyone, was holding their breath when they traded Russ. I got to see Geno that year I was out there, and granted he was in a backup role, but he had a really strong presence about him in the locker room. Guys still gravitated towards him. Obviously Russ was the man and he was the starter, but Geno was not your typical backup where he just kind of hung in the back and tried to stay out of the way. He would be out in practice, and, the first time you watch the ball come out of his hand, you're like, wow, like that guy is talented. You can tell why he had the success he did in college and then for a while there with the Jets. So I'm happy for Geno to get his shot and do as well as he did last year back for the first time in that full, kind of full-time capacity. But as you mentioned, they're young, they're talented, and they've really turned that roster over quite a bit in the last couple of years. So to their credit, I think they've got a lot of good players. I think they got a lot of young pieces. I think they probably surprised some people last year with how well they did. I think their division is not as strong as everyone. Going into last year, everyone thought that NFC West was going to be world beaters. The Rams obviously took their lumps. The Cardinals are kind of in a little bit of a rebuild. So with San Francisco arguably has the best roster in the league. We'll see what happens at quarterback with Purdy and Lance and all that staying healthy, but. That division is not what that division looked like even a couple of years ago. So I think you're spot on. I think the Seahawks are in a good spot. Talent-wise, obviously Pete Carroll's done it for a long time and knows how to kind of reinvent themselves on a every few year kind of cycle. And then I also think they're going to benefit from that NFC West maybe not being, aside from San Francisco, maybe not being the gauntlet that it was, only a year or two ago when the Rams were amongst the best teams in the league.
Is Rams at Seahawks your week one game, or your Packers Bears? Where are you going to be week one? What's your week one game?
Yeah, we're Packers. We're Packers Bears.
Okay, man.
Obviously, Rodgers being out of there, one of the main storylines kind of goes with him to New York. But looking at that matchup, you mentioned the two when you were kind of going through the young, kind of the young guys in the NFC with Justin Fields and now Jordan Love finally getting his chance to kind of step out from behind Aaron Rodgers' shadow. So I think there's going to be a lot of intrigue. It's in Chicago, which is awesome because it's one of the best cities in the world. So to go there to call a game is amazing. And then I think to see two young quarterbacks that their franchises have pretty much hitched their wagons to their backs and said, hey, we're going to go as far as you take us. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. I'm curious to see how the rest of the talent around Justin, I think them getting DJ Moore is critical. Last year, I think a big issue in Chicago was, Justin was out there and he was doing a lot with his legs and a lot as a designed runner, and he was super effective. They needed some better talent. They needed to protect him. They needed some more dynamic playmakers. So when they made the trade with Carolina, obviously, Carolina didn't want to send DJ, but that was the only way that Chicago was going to do it. So right. I think DJ is going to go a long way. I think Chase Claypool. So I think he'll have better weapons this year out there in Chicago.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.